So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the Canadian Virtual Cellular Business Conference, and welcome to our first session. Joining me is Alan Crossley. He is a partner at Transition Architects, and his topic for today is who are the buyers in today's market? With over 20 years of corporate finance experience, Alan is a leading acquisition and divestment consultant to private Canadian businesses. Previously, he was a partner at Osprey Capital, prior to which he served as Senior Vice President of Parkland Fuels. In this capacity, he was involved in and led multiple acquisitions, as well as managing the operations of a number of the company's businesses. Alan played a key role in Canadian National Railway's IPO, established CN's financial risk management program, and was a member of the company's Financial Risk Management Committee. All right, Alan, good luck on your presentation, and I will be back near the end just to help close everything out, and I hope everyone watching will enjoy his presentation as well.
Thanks, Sandra, and welcome everybody. As Sandra said, I'm Alan Crossley. I'm with Transition Architects, and I'll give you a little plug on them first. We are an Ontario-based M&A business brokerage. We work in our sweet spot of deal size is about 3 to 25 million. We'll go bigger, we'll go smaller, depending on the specific circumstances. We work on a retainer basis with a success fee that can be quite flexible depending on the amount of work we think there's going to be in your deal. And then the good part is we're happy to meet with anyone, give you a quick assessment of what your situation is and how we might be able to help you. So that is the advertisement for the day, and we'll get right on. So I spoke about Transition Architects, and we deal in the small to medium-sized enterprise businesses. One thing I will say, I give a disclaimer on all these things. I have a small dog, so she might be a part of the show. So what we do is we assess businesses today as the way a potential buyer would. So the way we're going to look at a business may not be the way the business owner is going to see his or her own business. It's a very different world from, say, accounting. The way an accountant would value a business is going to be based on, book value, some cash flow. We're actually going to try to figure out the market value, and that there's a lot of elements that go in behind that, which we'll talk about today. We go on by determining the areas of concern or risk that a buyer is perceived to have. What we're really trying to do is minimize the risk for a buyer. That's going to drive the value up or down depending on how much risk they perceive they're taking on. And then we will spend some time with companies up front, and we'll get into this a little bit later, on how you might improve your business to increase the sale price when you're ready. And I always use the analogy of a house. It's kind of, a couple $100 of paint will get you tens of thousands of dollars in the selling price. So we like to think we can do the same thing here. Once we complete the process, we believe that people will get the maximum value for the business because we're going to have a very attractive asset on the market, and there's going to be multiple buyers looking at your company. It's actually been a very successful model for us, and hopefully we can explain it a bit further. That's what we do. But first of all, we talked about the buyers. Who are the buyers? And that's really what the topic of this session is all about. And right now we're in a really good time for everybody. And this is the first time I've ever been able to say this. If you're selling your business, it's a great time to be a seller. If you're buying a business, it's a great time to be a buyer. The economist in me says you can't have strong demand and strong supply and have it all be really good. But there's a number of things that have happened over the last few years, actually the last decade. From a buyer's perspective, there's lots of businesses coming on the market now. We've been really, really busy since, I'm going to say since the beginning of the summer. And there's a number of reasons for that. As I said, it's gone on for some time. There was a number of buyers that got caught up in we'll call it the 2010 recession, had a few bad years. So when you're selling your business, you're going to need to demonstrate that you've had sort of 3 to 5 good solid years for a good valuation. So they were working on coming back from that. You've had some natural attrition. People generally will sell their business between the age of 45 and 55. Which is going to run completely counter what I'm about to say, which is a lot of the baby boomers held on to their businesses longer than they have historically. So what used to happen at 45 is now happening at 55, and it's just a function of lifestyle, health, and everything else. So we had the natural attrition of people that would have sold anyways. Then, of course, who can forget the 2021 pandemic? The M&A market for the year 2020, like everything else, just stopped. No one knew what was going on. Impossible to have meetings. Businesses were shutting down. Some businesses did really well. Other businesses didn't. There doesn't seem to be anybody in the middle there from what I've seen. So that slowed everything down for a year. So there's a lot of people that couldn't sell their business. Another group that wouldn't. And then finally, today, you've just got people who came through the pandemic, all the shutdowns, the startups, the shuts, bad economy. They just want to get out. I've got a friend who owns a small business. He came to me and said, look, I'm 58 years old. I have to start my business all over again. I just don't want to do it. Can you help me get out of here? Which we're working on. So that's, so that all those factors together have caused a great surge of businesses to come on the market. So like I said, if you're a buyer, it's a great time to be out there. There's lots of choice, lots of inventory, if you could use that word in this context. So that's really good. The sellers, on the other hand, why is it a great time for them? Well, pre-pandemic, the capital available was at an all-time high. I give another presentation, and you have to update the slides every year, but there's one slide I didn't update for about 5 years, and that always said the amount of dry powder, capital sitting on the sidelines for investment, is at a record high again. And it just went on year after year. The other thing that happened was valuations for businesses continued to escalate along with the growing piles of money. So demand was there for the businesses. In fact, there were more buyers than there were sellers pre-pandemic. The valuations, as I said, were very strong. Didn't matter if you're a big company or a small company, your business was in demand. So what happened during the pandemic? As I said, the market shut down for about 18 months. And we've seen a lot of activity since. And what we're seeing, and it's very surprising to me anyways, is the valuations have not come down. I expected, businesses to the multiples of earnings to come down significantly, but they haven't. They've remained strong because there's still money in the system. And in fact, again, I read the other day, there's another record pile of cash. So it keeps coming into the market with nowhere to go. So valuations have stayed strong. But what's happened is we've seen the payment structures, which again reflect the risk the buyers are taking, to shift a little bit. Historically, we would have seen a structure something like 1/3 of an equity investment, 1/3 of some bank debt coming in, and then the other third is being held by the seller, either in a note, a fixed note, or an earn-out provision or some type of thing. So that was generally a third, rule of thumb. Now what we're seeing is, the banks have pulled back a little bit, despite what they may say. They're very aggressive, but they're very cautious, as they always are. So now what we're seeing is more in the lines of half the money coming in on close is from the buyer, either his own money or bank loans, and then the seller is being asked to take a larger piece of paper to absorb some of the risk, because the buyers quite rightly are saying, hey, I'll give you the money that I said I would pay you, but I want to see the business perform back to its former level. Makes total sense. But we've got you'll see a structure that helps alleviate your stress as a seller and having to take a big piece of paper. So we'll get into a little bit of that. So let's talk about the types of buyers, because different types of buyers look for different things. They place valuations very differently on a business. So the first one is the family business. That's your son, your daughter, your cousin, your uncle, your aunt, somebody that it is the easiest transition because you're probably this person is already working in the business. If you sell it to them, and I use the word sell lightly, and there's a problem, you can come back in and help them out. Basically, you're going to be looking for the lowest valuation. I hope Revenue Canada is not watching, but it's to avoid the tax. You want to keep as much money in the business and in the family as you can. So you want a low valuation on a family business, which is pretty easy. No large capital outlays. So the buyer, if it's your son, your daughter, whoever, they're not having to write a big check. you can remain in the business. I know lots of people that say my son bought my business, my daughter bought my business, but I'm still going in 3 days a week. You can use this as an ongoing retirement income fund. And the downside of all that is it will put some pressure, or it could put some pressure on the family if the business doesn't perform and, dad's not getting his retirement checks or what have you. You might be wondering why I call it the no money miracle. This is based on an experience a friend of mine went through, and he said, and I've seen this in a number of businesses. He didn't get paid for the business by his son. His son kept saying, "You mean I have to write you a check?" And he said, "So I got no money, and it's a miracle I haven't killed him." But they are tough. I say they're the easiest, but they can also be the toughest on the family. I think it's 46% of businesses actually go to the second generation and are successful. And out of that, 18% actually go to the third generation and remain in business. Very, very tough to follow on your parents' leads. And I always like to say that, mom, dad, you made it look too easy running that business for your kids. So that's one buyer. Another group is the management team in your business. This is generally going to be a low purchase price, unless you've been paying your employees really, really well. They will typically partner up with a private equity firm to give you the upfront money that you want, so it quickly becomes a private equity deal. Or you can lend them the money yourselves and remain in the business, remain in control, to make sure you're going to get paid and everybody's happy. You can do this over a very long period of time. There are companies and there are consultants that will come in and help you do an ESOP, an employee share ownership plan, where the employees buy you out over a 10, 20-year period. The business performance improves as soon as the employees start owning the company, because now they start to think like owners, not like employees. So that's a statistical fact. Now, getting into the other types of buyers, a strategic buyer is going to be your competitor, a co-producer, somebody else in your market, or somebody outside your home market. So these are actual operating companies. They're coming in to get into your market, to take control of your company, to get your products, what have you. Generally speaking, and I'll touch on this again, but historically, this has been the greatest valuation a business can get, because there's a lot of synergies that an operating company can get that a financial buyer cannot. They know the market, they know the industry. As Sandra said, when I started, I was doing oil and gas deals, and I was the guy that could walk in, look around, and in 5 minutes, I knew whether we were going to buy the place or not. A financial buyer's got a different perspective. Maybe they don't have the market knowledge or the industry knowledge to be able to do it that quickly. They want to look at your balance sheet, your cash flows, and all that type of thing. As I mentioned earlier, companies are looking to widen their product offering or their service offering, which can bring a lot more value to their business, and they can lower their overhead. So that's basically staff reductions that can take place. Again, financial companies can't do that. The downside, your company, your employees, the culture is going to be absorbed into the acquiring companies. Some people are okay with that. Other people want to see, their name remain on the door. They want to see their employees treated well, and nothing really changed. So that's a personal choice. The other one is you will most likely be removed from the company after a brief transition. So all the companies that I bought and the ones that I've seen otherwise, basically when the owner gets taken out of the business fairly quickly, it's a much better setup for the buyers, because I worked in one, and we called it the triangle of death, where we had the owners, myself, the former owner, and the staff, and they would always come to me when they didn't get the answer from the new owners that they wanted. And again, a strategic buyer is the best solution for somebody who's looking to leave the business fairly soon, such as a retirement. The one thing I did not mention is the first thing that we will ask you, or one of the first things we will ask you when we meet with you, is what do you want to do after the deal closes? And that would be day 1, that would be day 365, that would be day 730, that's 2 years. If you want to leave right away, then we've got to find you a strategic buyer. They're the right guys that can come in, take over your business, start running it. They don't really need you. A financial buyer is going to, which we'll touch on, is going to need you to stay. So if you want to keep working in the business, you're probably looking at a financial buyer or a management takeover. Two other kinds of buyers: the public markets, the ones on the right there, I'm not going to touch on because I don't think anybody here is really thinking of going public. If you are, can't help you anyways because I'm not licensed to do that. Private equity funds, they're a great, they always were a great mystery. I don't think they are as much anymore. In fact, the first time I heard of private equity, I was being bought by one. So it was a real eye opener. They're going to look at your business from a cash flow perspective. So what they're going to want to see is your EBITDA over the last 3 to 5 years. They want to see a good, solid performance. They want to see how much cash you're going to generate, because that's then going to allow them to go borrow the money either from investors or from the banks to buy your company. What do? They place high value on consistently growing earnings with significantly more growth. So if you're a company that's done really well, but you want to get bigger, but you don't see how you can do it because it needs a capital infusion, it needs more management skills, what have you. These can also be a good way to go. They're looking for ownership of control. They're not looking for operational control. So they're going to come in, they're going to buy the company, they're going to set up a board to help you with financing, they're going to help you with strategy, but they're not going to be coming in every day and telling you what time to turn the lights on, how to do whatever. As I said, they need you to stay. They don't have the operating expertise that the company needs. They will bring some people in who are going to have to learn it. Sometimes they'll bring in someone that's been there and done that, so it's actually a really good thing. Their timeline for ownership typically is 3 to 7 years. They get paid. They make their money by buying a business, fixing it up, and then selling it. A lot of PE firms now are saying they're going to hold them for 20 years. I'm sort of in the see it when I believe it camp, but hey, maybe in 20 years I'll be shaking my head saying they actually meant it, because what a lot of them found was they spent the first 3 or 4 years changing the strategy, investing in the business, growing the business, but it really didn't start paying off until after sort of year 5, 6, 7, when there wasn't a big injection of capital required. All the fruit was coming off the tree, so to speak. But they will expect your business to grow quickly, and they will expect it to grow quickly through acquisitions, along with some organic growth. But they know acquisitions. That's what they like. That's what they're going to be looking for. So it's a good buyer. It's a great buyer for the right situation. As I said, the strategic buyers used to be able to outbid the private equity buyers all the time for your business, but now with so much money available, the private equity guys are just stepping it up because their goal really is to deploy the cash, not necessarily are they overly worried about the business. Don't get me wrong, they are, but their real job is moving the cash through the company. So the keys to success, people always say, what do I need to do to have a good buyer? Because a buyer wants to be successful. And my first day on the job, my boss sat me down and said, Alan, there's only 3 things I look for when we go to buy a company. And that's a good management team. And once we're convinced we have that, we make sure we have a good management team. You can have a really good business with a bad management team is going to definitely become a bad company. A bad company with good management can become a good company, but a good company with great management can, sky's the limit. So that's the first thing everybody looks at. Do we have competent people in the business that can run it when we buy it? Number 2 is differentiated value creation plan. So basically what and this is a slide from Bain, so the wording is a bit consultancy, but what that means is, how are you going to outmarket the market? How are you going to grow your company in that market? How do you differentiate yourselves? And you're just not another, me too, and I'm going to work harder and faster than the guy in the next, in my competitor. They want to know what the plan is. Number 3 is solid market growth. So they're looking for industries that are growing. Nobody wants to invest in, let's say, a coal mine right now. Not really a growth market. So, they want to see that you're in a growing market. Number 4 is looking for expansion of new products and geographies. Again, I go back to the strategic buyers who are going to be looking for, does your product line dovetail with theirs? Do you have geographies that they don't have? It's a great way to enter a new market, is to come in from, Montreal into Toronto, or California into Toronto. Great, fast way faster, way cheaper than having to build something. So come in, just buy somebody, and there you are. Strong alignment between companies. So are the cultures similar? Is going to be a 10-year deal to try and get everyone working together, processing products, that type of thing. Exit plan. The exit plan, really, it's surprising, but the private equity firms are always, one of the first things they do is say, well, how do we sell this business? Even though they might keep it for 5 or 6 years, is it going to be an easy sale? If you're the only guy in the market and nobody wants to buy that business, they're not going to touch you today. And part of it is also, what if we buy the business, it doesn't work out, can we get rid of it quickly? I don't want to hang on to a dog, but they always look at how easy is it going to be to sell. So that's another big thing that these people are going to be looking at. And then, of course, there's meaningful cost reductions and ability to grow your market share. So those are the key drivers of success that people are going to be looking at when they're looking at your business, be it private equity or be it a strategic buyer. Now, things to think about. Some of these I've already covered. One is your industry in favor? Are you selling a software or a healthcare business right now? Everybody wants that. Are you selling, a coal mine business or a pipeline business in Canada? Nobody's really too interested in those. So, it changes over the years, but if your industry is in favor, it's a great time to sell. If your industry is not, you can still sell. You're just not going to get the valuations that somebody with the same type of numbers would have in a different industry. Number 2, the market management team. We just touched on that. Is you've got to make sure you got a strong team. Small businesses in particular, the owner tends to be the dominant player. You've got to make sure you've got number 2 and number 3 in there that can take over if the owner leaves and the new management come in. That's what they're looking for. That's going to drive the valuation actually a lot more than people realize, because if it's all a one-person team and that everything's dependent on that one person, again, it goes back to how much risk am I assuming? Well, if Bill is my only player and Bill leaves, I'm hooped and I just lost all my money. Your growth opportunities, plans to succeed. We talked about those. Make sure you have a plan. Make sure you can articulate it. Make sure it's laid out on paper. I've sat through so many meetings where we hear great stories from owners, and they talk and talk and talk, and they might as well be talking about, Alice in Wonderland, because I can't follow it all. I don't know the market. I don't know the players, but boy, if you put down a couple of slides in front of me, some spreadsheets, I can figure that out in a heartbeat. And that's what people want. Simplicity. Historical financial results. Again, we said 3 to 5 years of good earnings. Okay. That's EBITDA, it's not net profit, so you may have a lot of depreciation, amortization expenses. That's okay. As long as your EBITDA is growing, that's what people want to see. Tax considerations. This is a big one. People don't take enough time to think about their tax situation. You've got to do this before you start the selling process. You see point number 8 up there says, any ownership changes should be completed within 2 years of advance of you closing your business. There is a rule that says any ownership changes made within 24 months of the sale do not qualify for the, I think it's $850,000 tax-free exemption. So if you want to get your kids in there, your spouse in there, your neighbor, I don't know who, make sure you do it at least 2 years before the business gets sold. We also talk about, back to number 6, planning at least 3 years in advance. So you've got to start to look at, and this is where we can help you, what are your earnings doing? What's your management team like? What's your strategy all about? Who's out in the marketplace that you should be looking at maybe buying yourself or, working with? So those are all things that a buyer is going to want to see, and they don't want to see you cook it up, last week. They want to know that this has been in place for a while. And then also the other thing that surprises people is the amount of time it takes to prepare your company. And that means putting together all the documentation and putting together, an information memorandum on your business so people can understand the industry, they understand your company, they understand the people in your company and the opportunities that your company could bring. Then the next one, of course, is just finding the right buyer. That can take quite a while depending on what industry you're in. There's a lot of buyers, there's a lot of money, but the key here is to find the right buyer with the money, because the right buyer is going to help you grow your business versus someone who just comes in and buys the business and sits back and demands their dividend check. Redundant assets, something we see often is, you own a building, make sure it's in a separate company, make sure you don't have any personal assets in there. I was involved in one transaction and sort of at the 11th hour, the owner called and said, "Oh my God, my business owns my cottage." And so we had to stop the whole transaction, start backing things out. And that, of course, raised a lot of eyebrows on the other side. And what else is there in there? And the numbers all start changing. So you never want to have that happen during the process. So you've got to clean all that up beforehand. It just makes it easier to properly value your business. And I can't stress that enough. The other one that you should think about is the amount of working capital in your business. I've been involved in a number of transactions that have fallen apart because owners tend to leave more money in the business than they need to. And the buyers come along and say, well, if he's always had $1 million in there, why do I only need $500,000? I don't like the way this is going. So if you can clean all that up beforehand, there isn't all that confusion, good, clean valuation, and not a lot of debate about things that are going on and people trying to wriggle things in and out of the deal. Jumping to number 9, the due diligence process is always far more involved than expected by buyers. By sellers. The buyers are and have to be skeptical about what they see. So they're going to ask a lot of questions. They're going to dig down pretty deep. My advice to people always is don't take it personally. They just want to know. They don't understand the business, and they just want to know that what you said to them is correct, right? So they want to see it in writing. I've had people blow up in meetings. It's never a good thing. But that's what we're here for, right? That's what your advisor is supposed to be doing, is helping you through this and trying to help you understand that, when someone says, "Can I see those books again?" It's not a personal dig. It's just, I have to do it because now my bank wants it, or maybe I misinterpreted something. So it's so those are just some of the tips that you should be thinking about before you get into this longer process that anybody here, I'm sure, is thinking. This is not putting a sign on your lawn and in Toronto it's gone in 2 days. It's this takes, as we said, probably about 3 years if you're doing it properly. Now, how do we maximize the valuation? Well, there's 2 ways to sell your business. I'm sure there's more than 2, but let's just focus on 2 for now. One is an outright sale. So you're going to do a share sale or an asset sale. The share sales are preferred by the vendor, and the asset sales are always preferred by the buyer. The reason for that is if you buy the shares of a company, you buy everything. So it's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And if there's a lawsuit that comes along and you haven't owned the shares at that time, it's on you. If you buy the assets, you don't take the corporate skeletons with it. Now, as I said, this is going to work really good with a competitor or an industry operator. So a strategic buyer is going to want to buy all the shares or all your assets just because they want to own the whole thing outright. They want to incorporate it into their business and just keep running and realize all the synergies that they had bought your company for. Shares versus assets, that as the seller is going to depend on your personal tax situation. So in some cases, the shares are going to be a better sale for you. You're probably going to want to do that anyways because of the trailing liabilities, whereas the buyer's probably going to be pushing for an asset sale. The ones I've been involved in when we've had some pretty let's say peppered discussions around that between the 2, we usually end up selling the assets at a better price. So that they end up buying the assets, but they pay more than they wanted to. So it's a number between the 2 that sort of keeps everybody happy. But again, you work with your tax accountant, figure out what your situation is well in advance of this, so we can structure the deal in the best possible way for you, because you have to remember, it's not what the price is that you get for your business, it's how much you end up with in the bank when it's all done and the government has taken their pound of flesh. The buyer is always going to assume the majority of the risk in any transaction, and this is going to drive the valuation up or down, as I've said. So, you really, really, really have to think about what is the buyer taking on, and how can I make this easier for them to understand. It's going to lead to a better valuation. Now, we talked before about the current situation where owners are being asked to retain a bigger chunk of the business, either through debt or equity. So you're going to end up selling off part of the business. You're going to sell 75 to 80% of the company. Your experience is going to remain in the business. It's going to diversify the risk between the seller and the buyer, because you're still going to have a stake in it. They're going to have less of a stake, but they're going to have you. The lenders really like it when the seller sticks around, because it reduces the risk for them too. You can enjoy some of the upside. So as you have equity and you bring in a big partner, your equity is going to grow faster than if you'd kept the business yourself. And we often say that if you can sell 75% of the business, that 25% will probably be worth as much as the first piece you sold a couple of years earlier. And it can be a great exit plan for someone who still wants to remain engaged in the business beyond just the sale. So that is all I have to say today. We're happy to talk to anybody that would like to talk to us about selling your business or potentially getting your business ready for sale. I'm happy to take questions, as is my partner, April. You see our phone numbers there. Feel free to look us up and give us a call. If there's any questions, I'm not sure how this works, but you can maybe chime in. Are we done? Thank you very much.